Hello, we're getting everything set up here. I've got about a minute before I'm supposed to start, but I thought I'd start a little bit early, let people join in here. My name is Monique. I'm with ladybugscabin.com. I'm here on the beautiful shores of the Swan River, and we are actually enjoying a little bit of cloud today. It's been so hot the past few weeks that having a little cloud this morning has been lovely. I have a lot of things to cover today. We're only going to cover a few things. So if I don't touch on something that you are specifically interested in or issues that you're having, send me a message or write in the comments, and I will be sure to get back to you as soon as I am able to look through those. And we will have the ability to talk about those things, because machine quilting, free-motion quilting, everybody tends to get a little stressed out about it. I myself am not so far removed from when I was really stressed out about doing free motion quilting myself, which is one of the reasons that I love to teach it, because I like to help other people get down out of the tree that we tend to climb when we are doing that. So just to start off with, set yourself up for the best success that you can. And by that, I mean, make sure that your machine is at a really good height. You don't want to be wearing your shoulders as earrings when you're quilting, because this is going to cause a lot of fatigue and tension. And if you're tense, your machine's going to be tense and your thread's going to be tense and nobody's going to be happy. So nice and ergonomically set up. Make sure that your machine table is at a level that is keeping like a 90-degree angle between your arms and your shoulders. As much as possible. I know that we all can't have the perfect environment, but try to set yourself up on a table that allows you to be in the best position where your shoulders are nice and relaxed. Make sure you have a good, clean, large surface that you're working on. So a nice big open table. If you're like me and we tend to play a little Tetris around our studio as we're working, don't have piles of stuff around you, because if your quilt that you're working on hits any of those piles, it's going to cause a little bit of tension and distraction. It might cause some drag. You might end up stitching something into your project that you didn't necessarily mean to, because it's gotten attached on the bottom. So give yourself a nice clean area to start with so that you have a really great place to begin. There are some tools that are useful when you are doing free motion quilting. A lot of you have heard of machine gurus, which are these little fun quilting gloves. There's a new glove out that looks a bit more like golfing gloves that has a couple fingers open. These are pretty handy because they actually have a little Velcro here on the heel of your hand so that you can actually cinch it up or make it loose as is comfortable. And it's got a pad here on the end that actually helps keep your arm and your wrist at a good level so that you're not getting as much fatigue as well. So I have a few of these different on my site if you have interest in finding out more, or just send me a message and I'll be sure to talk about that as well. Another thing that's really important with your machine is make sure it's clean. You know, get that bobbin case out and dust out all those little dust bunnies out of there. A pipe cleaner works great. Just don't go too vigorously down in those areas. There are springs down there that you don't want to unhook, but it really works well for attaching all of that lint that can build up while you're sewing. I do it after every bobbin, or if I'm feeling a little lazy that day, maybe after every second bobbin. It's really good to get in there, clean that area out. If you have any thread down there or lint, it's not going to help your tension. It's really important to make sure that you're working on a nice clean slate. The other thing is make sure you've got a new needle in there. You know, we don't change our needles enough. You know, we just tend to keep using the same one. I'm as guilty as the rest. But a new day, new needle, new project, new needle, it can really make a difference in your quilting. Because if your needle is not happy, your tension is not going to be happy again. And that's half the battle with quilting. Also make sure that you've got the proper size of needle in there for the thread that you're using. I've talked about this in a few other demos, so I'm not going to go into it a huge amount today. But again, if you have specific questions, please message me and I'll be happy to go over that. The other fun tool that you can use are, they've like little hoops that you can use. My favorite is the Halo, mainly just because I like to be able to say that I have one. This might be the only one I have, but this is a rubberized weighted hoop that you don't actually have to hoop. It just lays down on the fabric and helps you move it around while you're quilting. It's nice because you can just lightly touch it with the edges of your fingers, and that reminds you that you don't have to hold on for dear life as you're quilting. Because again, the more tense your hands are, the more tense your body is, and the more tense your quilting is going to be. We can't have beautiful gliding, sliding, beautiful lines if we are little balls of knots of stress. So that brings me to my next point. The best thing that you can do in your free motion quilting is to engage your sense of humor. And by that, I mean celebrate those funky stitches. Really, like, when you make a really funky stitch and you're trying a new design, celebrate it. Send up a cheer. I don't care if you throw glitter, whatever it is, but change your attitude towards learning. We tend to want to sit down and be perfect. And I understand that because I do want to have beautiful stitches too. But the more you celebrate and acknowledge, this is where I am today, the better your quilting is going to get, because you're then not struggling against where you are to where you want to be. You want to just have that beautiful conversation with, okay, I'm having difficulties with this design today. That means that I'm not assuming that I'm always going to have difficulties with it. I'm allowing myself to open up to the idea that I'm going to get better at it. So, really engage your sense of humor, giggle at your funny stitches, make a few more just for fun. In fact, I dare you. We have this fun thing in our theater community that we would say, dare to suck, because there's no great art without great risk. So I dare you to make some really great funky stitches and celebrate them, because your sense of humor is really going to help your quilting. You're going to sit down and you're going to have fun in front of your machine, as opposed to getting tense and feeling really mad about what you're making. Now you're going to be sitting there having a ball because you are thoroughly enjoying yourself in all of your hilarity. So really do engage your sense of humor. On the side note, you don't have to drop your feed dogs. A lot of people think, okay, free motion quilting, I got to drop the feed dogs. Now I'm completely in control of my own movement. And that's fine. Some of the machines that have really fancy feet that you put on probably are going to fight you if you try to keep your feed dogs up. However, by keeping your feed dogs engaged when you're using a free motion foot or a darning foot, you actually kind of keep a little bit of the cadence of what the machine would be doing if it were in control of pulling that fabric through the machine. And it's a really great learning tool for you to get a sense of exactly how much you're able to be moving. We tend to move our hands really slowly or really fast against the speed of the machine. And the best thing to do in getting the conversation between your machine and your hands is to try and find that equal partnership. Now, the machine knows what it's doing when the feed dogs are up and you have your normal foot on. It puts the fabric through the machine at the right pace. When we put that free motion foot on, now all of a sudden we're in the driver's seat and we're in control. And that's when things can get a little squirrely until you get more comfortable with that. So by keeping your feed dogs up, even when you have your darning foot or your free motion foot on the machine, that allows you to feel a little bit of how the machine would be bringing that fabric through. You're still in control because you can still move it any which way you want, but you'll feel that rhythm. I really would like to encourage you to try it. Both your feed dogs up, feed dogs down. How does that affect your quilting? You might change from day to day. You might change from minute to minute. That's your prerogative. You get to choose when you want to have your feed dogs up or your feed dogs down, but just experiment a little bit with it. If you're really new to quilting or to free motion quilting, or if you're just really wanting to get better at practicing, best thing you can do is just make a whole bunch of what I call quilt sandwiches and have them nearby. A quilt sandwich is literally just fabric, batting, fabric. Now you can use muslin or any cheap fabric. You can use that fabric up that you bought that you think, why in the world did I ever buy that? Well, now you can use it. Cut it into about 14-inch squares. Doesn't have to be exact, but just a nice little size for you to play on. Keep a stack of those next to your sewing machine. If you only have a certain amount of time in the day to sit down at your machine and work, or if you just don't have the mental space to work on cutting or piecing a big project that you're working on, grab one of those sandwiches, put it under your machine, and play. Because the more you play without having to feel like I must achieve this perfectly, the better relationship you're going to have sitting in front of that machine with your free motion foot on. One of the best things that you can do is write your name. These are shapes that we already know. We make those shapes all the time. The only difference is when you're sitting in front of your domestic machine is you're going to be moving your paper and not your pen. But you know those shapes. Your brain knows that shape. It can't tell you that it doesn't because you sign your name all the time. So play with, write your initials, write your name. If that's something that you immediately find that you can do, well, then challenge yourself and write your name so that it curves around and goes back the other direction. When you're free motion quilting, you have the ability to go any direction you want. So it's good to practice shapes going in every direction. So this is one thing you can sort of step up your quilting a little bit by taking familiar shapes that you know and bending them in odd ways that you don't usually write them. And now the other thing is to let your machine go at a medium pace. I'm talking really fast because I'm almost out of time, but you want your machine to go at a nice medium pace. If you try to go too slowly with your machine, you're going to have issues. One of the best metaphors was told to me by Ellen Ann Eddy, who's a great thread artist that I dearly love, is if you're trying to learn how to ride a bicycle and you pedal really slowly, what happens? You fall over, right? So you need to find a nice, happy medium pace. The sound of the machine might sound a little intense to you if you're not used to it. Allow yourself to get used to it. Again, give yourself that chance to learn and find the fun in the learning process. Not just being great at it, but getting great at it. That is the mental hurdle that we most need to get over. Doodle and play. Make funny little stick figures, make funny little flower drawings. Just sit there and squiggle, try different things. You will all of a sudden decide, oh, hey, this is kind of a fun little design that I'm making, and then follow that. When you do find a design that you've made that you like, cut that little sucker out and put it in what I call a stitch journal, so that you have designs that you know you can do, that you had fun doing it, so that when you're having a bad day, when you're thinking, well, I can't do this, you can look at your journal and say, well, actually you did, so hush, and just have some fun and make that design. It's just a really good reference tool to have with you as well. The other thing is when you're trying to learn a new design, draw it. Get some pieces of paper and just draw it over and over and over. When you get familiar with drawing that design, it's going to become more easier when you're quilting it. It's, again, the hand, mind, and then, of course, foot combination. If you have a speed control on your machine, set it again at that medium pace so you don't have to worry about what your foot is doing if you get stressed out. Or maybe you have a start-stop button. Same thing. You can unplug your foot pedal, get the foot out of the picture, set your speed, and then you don't have to worry about, again, having one more element to think about. The other thing is, find some fabrics that allow you to be inspired. So that, there's a lot of different fabrics out there that actually have some really fun designs in them. And if they're part of your project already, you actually can find shapes in there that you can use as a design. These kind of fabrics are also great for practice. Practicing these designs that you may find in a piece of fabric would allow you to then get used to making those shapes. So look through your stash, or next time you're shopping, either online or at your favorite quilt store, look for fabrics that might be kind of fun to practice that kind of quilting. Or fabrics like this one, which actually already look like they have pieced blocks. And then you can play with different designs in there to see how it would look if you had actually pieced this first. This way you have the ability to play without all the time and then the stress of actually worrying about what's going to be on the quilt that you've just made. The other thing is, start small. Make yourself some cute little smaller projects that allow you to have the ability to play with quilting without having, again, all the time investing. Now, these two little samples are two samples that I'm doing for a class that's coming up through the Sewing Expo that I actually have a link for on the video above. So you can go ahead and click on that if you want more information, or you can go to my website and find out as well. But by doing these smaller projects or little table runners where you have, the ability to, really just work in a smaller thing without a ton of time put in, and then you can play with different textures in the quilting. This is a great way of not having to stress out about having, a ton of time and investment put into your pieces, and then you find out, oh, I didn't really like that quilting on it. I'm just about out of time. Again, if you have questions that I haven't actually covered, there's so much, which is, why I will teach a full day class on these things. But I just really want to encourage you to sit down, to play, to allow yourself to have a really good time. Celebrate those funky stitches. We all have them. And eventually you're going to find yourself getting better and better. But the most important thing to hang on to is allow yourself to learn. Allow yourself to get better. If you find yourself making some really weird stitches, know that you have a really great thing now, because now you have a baseline that's going to really show your progress if you keep up the good work, happy work. And again, I tell a lot of my quilting students this: I don't want to hear you say, I can't make this design without the word yet on the end of it. All right? Be kind to yourself, have fun, play, and stay connected. Let me know if you have any questions, and thank you so much for tuning in. Patty's got her new piece coming up right after mine. It's all listed on my website, so you can go ahead and find it there. Here on Facebook, follow me on YouTube, and thanks so much for tuning in.